The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
Did you stay up? Did you watch the Vols make the College World Series? Because they did. Hattiesburg be darned. The Vols are going to Omaha with Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. Welcome to the program. We have a huge show lined up today. We'll talk about the baseball Vols, of course. Also, Deion Sanders coming across as a little hypocritical, maybe, with the collectives. And in honor of Nikola Jokic, who, by the way, won an NBA championship, for those that were watching the baseball Vols, I certainly understand that. Who is the most unlikely Tennessee superstar ever? That's our smoky hot takes of the day. And we're going to take this from high school to college or college to the pros, and also the most overrated coach in college football, which, just for the record, at our 3:15 production meeting, Caleb said this would be a great transition from the Deion Sanders thing. He's already got Deion Sanders is overrated. We'll discuss. And did Tennessee just have the most successful season in their long, storied athletics history? Here we go. How are you, Caleb Calhoun?
I am good, Dave. I will say I'm a little disappointed just to show up college baseball. I really wish Tennessee had advanced to the College World Series by default because of a rain delay in Hattiesburg, because that would be hilarious given the fact that this series never should have been in Hattiesburg.
Yeah, there was like a goofy way that could happen, but they had to get that game in. What was the goofy way that could happen? I was trying to follow, and I was just going to wait and see how it unfolded.
So basically, if they couldn't finish a game or play a game, and the series was still tied at whatever, which it was 1-1, and they couldn't play it by Tuesday, they wouldn't be able to play the game before the College World Series. So their determination to see who advances to the next round would be who is ranked higher in the RPI. Well, Tennessee's ranked higher in the RPI than Southern Miss, even though Southern Miss got to host this series. The hilarious thing, as you know yesterday, weather was beautiful in Knoxville. They easily could have played the series in Knoxville.
It was very nice. And go ahead, and as far as if you can start to fill in throughout the morning as we talk about, or afternoon or evening, whenever you're watching, start to fill in our message board the most overachieving Vol. And it could be like a guy who's a 3-star who turns into a superstar in college, or I want to take it a step further. It could be a Tennessee player who went on to great things in the pros. So we'll take all the above, because I had trouble coming up with a long list, quite frankly. And I don't know, sometimes I can get too close to everything when I covered the football team and the various basketball teams, a little bit of baseball. Sometimes I get too close to it. So maybe I'm missing something. So go ahead and fill it in. Most overachieving Vol on our message board. You can check us out on Twitter too. We're everywhere at the Dave Hooker. And also you can check us out at OTH Sports Media. And somebody called Caleb Calhoun out for looking like a rock star. Did you? I sent you that note.
Oh, yeah, the Iron Maiden lead singer.
Yes. Okay, first, Jacob, tell everybody what to do. Jacob Warren, Tennessee tight end, and a new video of him up right now, the Vol Report, brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden, and Cooper Mays, brought to you by City Heating and Air Conditioning. It is up. Most overachieving Vol. That's right, Rocky Top Tom. Fill it out. Tell them what to do, Jacob Warren.
What's up, everybody? This is Jacob Warren asking you to like, subscribe, and share. Dave needs this.
Dave does. It leads us to today's tough question in response to those Diamond Vols that are going on to the College World Series. Pretty cool. Good for those cats.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Yes, Caleb looks like Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden. A younger, thinner-faced Bruce Dickinson.
I'm just a teenage dirtbag. Anybody remember that?
No. My wife loves, she finds 3 redheaded men very attractive. One is Willie Nelson. The other is Axl Rose. And the third is me. So that's pretty good company. What about that, Caleb?
That's great company. That is really good company. But is it Axl Rose from the 80s or Axl Rose now?
No, it's not Throw Mama from the Train Axl Rose that's rocking it now with Slash. I almost bought those tickets, Caleb. You'll be proud of me. I backed out. I had the trip to LA planned. It was Guns N' Roses, AC/DC, and Metallica, the power trip. So I passed on it one weekend. I was close, but Guns N' Roses looks horrible. Is this the best season for Tennessee athletics in its history? I'm going to start by going to Caleb Calhoun, who is our resident historian, and he could offer some perspective. My first initial retort at our 3:15 a.m. production meeting was that I got to go 98 Vols, right? Because the football Vols are going to trump everything. They won a national championship 98-99. The basketball team was very good, but they were disappointed against Delaware and then Southwest Missouri State that season. And then the Lady Vols, despite not winning a championship, had one of the best teams of all time. They had an injury-riddled season in 98-99. If they're healthy, they win it. Honestly, I would have to double-check to see what the baseball team that did that year, but I don't think they made the College World Series, and they didn't make the playoffs, did they? So they kind of stumbled through at about 31-20, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, they were very mediocre. That was I believe that was Chris Burke's freshman year. Okay. Maybe it was his sophomore year, but yeah, they didn't do anything special that year. And Tennessee softball, I don't know if Tennessee softball had started yet. I think that sport began in 1999, which I guess theoretically would be the same year. So maybe it did, but either way, that the sport was just getting off the ground. So yeah, okay. So 1999, Tennessee baseball went 28. Remember, the 98 national championship team would be the same academic year as the 99 baseball team, not the 98 baseball team.
Right. Yeah. So we're going 98-99 fiscal year. I can't get past the national championship Tennessee football team. So, like, if everybody else didn't win a game, yes, I think you've got a strong argument. To me, though, football is so big. Is it 90%? Is it 95%? Is it 80%? Whatever. Let's argue it. But it's the vast majority. I can't get past 98-99, to be real honest with you, to answer today's tough question. But maybe I'm making it too simplistic. What say you, Caleb Calhoun?
No, you are right. If there's anything, I mean, football is so important. It matters the most. I'm with you. I tried to make a case for 1950, 1951, because that year Tennessee won the national championship in football. That was the first of back-to-back national titles in football, and they made the College World Series in baseball, excuse me. But in basketball, they went 10-13, and there were no women's sports during that time. So we have to go back to, you're right, 98-99 is the strongest case, because not just football. Dave, you and I agree that football is the engine of 80-90%, but the other 10-13% to get to 98 or 99% is on the hardwood. It's on basketball and women's basketball. And then you talk baseball and softball. But football, basketball, and then women's football up here, basketball, women's basketball here, and then the diamond goes below that.
Agreed. And if the Lady Vols didn't become what the Lady Vols became in the 80s and 90s, then I could roll with you in the 51 season or maybe any other season. If they were just an average women's basketball program, which most are, right? But they became the greatest women's basketball program of all time in their era. So I can't just discount that as you didn't have women's sports back then, so we'll give you a pass. I mean, that was huge for the athletic department, not just for the Lady Vols. I mean, that to be one of the greatest ever in your sport is pretty monstrous.
Yeah, the Lady Vols built themselves a brand and a culture that they took pride in to a real. I mean, again, I've talked about this before. The Lady Vol fan base is not the same as other Tennessee sports fan bases. There's a very distinct demographic that is very prideful over what the university built. That goes back to the fact that, to their credit, the University of Tennessee was the first school in the South to embrace Title IX, just fully embrace it in the 1970s. And they got a lot of credit for that, and they deserve a lot of credit for that.
Okay, so Caleb, what would it take for me to take a football national championship out of the equation? So let's say this upcoming season, it's impossible, I know. Let's say, though, for instance, this upcoming season, Tennessee plays for a national title. They make the Final Four in both basketball teams, Lady Vols and the men, and they win the College World Series in the upcoming 2023-24. Would that supersede 98? You're playing for a national title. You're not winning it, Caleb. Would that supersede 98? I'm trying to come up with a backdrop that you would remove that national title for football. I can't.
Okay. Do they get an SEC title?
Oh, so they win in Atlanta?
Yes. Do they win in Atlanta? Because in many ways, it's not going to be this way in 2024 once you go to 12 teams and the SEC gets so huge. But right now, winning the SEC title is just barely a step below the national title. I mean, in some cases, it's harder, if you ask me, to win the SEC than the national title. So I think if you can get that SEC title this year, and then you're right, they win the College World Series. They go to the Final Four in men's or women's basketball, but go to the Sweet 16, at least in both. Make the College World Series in softball. I mean, that might do it. Okay,
so we're not taking this season 22-23 and knocking 98-99 off the pedestal. And let's talk about why for a second, because this is the first time since 1998 to have a Tennessee football team in a New Year's Six Bowl, men's and women's basketball in a Sweet 16, and baseball and softball, which I haven't mentioned softball, my apologies, in the College World Series. That's an incredible, 6 Pete? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, 5. That's an incredible quintuplet of achievements. That to me is beyond the standard. So kudos to Danny White. I mean, the standard to me from now on, and with what Tennessee has in terms of resources, is making the college football playoff each and every year, is making the NCAA tournament in basketball, men and women, and making the College World Series, or at least the playoffs in baseball and softball. So if your average year, what you should expect is what I laid out, and that's making the postseason in all of the above. They have gone way beyond that. So you have to give kudos to Danny White and all the coaches and players that were on campus. It's been a heck of a year no matter what happens in Omaha.
Yeah, we got to give credit to a lot of different people who made this happen. I mean, so the 5 sports I named, baseball, basketball, football, softball, women's basketball, all had a different athletic director hire the coach in the sport. Danny White, that just shows the tumultuous time Tennessee's gone through the past decade. But Danny White hired Josh Heupel. Dave Hart hired Rick Barnes. Fulmer hired Kelly Harper. John Curry hired Tony Vitello. And Doug Dickey hired Karen Weekly 20 some odd years ago with Ralph Weekly during that time. So we're talking a bunch of different sports that were hired by a bunch of different athletic directors. And they all failed in so many miserable ways, but they all at least got one hire right, it looks like. Although the basketball ones, there is a debate if Tennessee can do better in women's basketball, but the success is still there. And
so if you're Danny White, scale of 1 to 10, what is your argument for a significant raise?
You saved the football program. You don't need another argument.
Exactly. That's exactly where I was going to go. So you can tell me that if I'm in front of the board of directors and I'm trying to go out there and get my raise, you can tell me that this guy and that guy hired that coach and that coach, but I saved the football program. And I think he's laid a groundwork where Tony Vitello wants to stay. Correct?
Oh, I agree. He has. I don't think Tony Vitello has any desire. I would guess if Arkansas comes calling because he went to Arkansas, that might be up for debate. But I think you go where your resources are, and I think Tennessee has such strong resources. I think it's a better job than Arkansas in baseball.
Yep, I agree. Today's tough question brought to you by our friends at Zen Sports. They're our new gambling partner. Check them out. They've got the cash back rewards. Earn 5% cash back on your bets for the first 15 days of betting on Zen Sports. That bonus is uncapped if you use the referral code HOOKED, HOOKED. And it's an easy to use sports book. You can search and sort bets very easily. We love them. They've got the peer-to-peer betting coming very soon. So check them out. Betting just got better. You can take control of your bets and the money you bet with. Check out Zen Sports. Again, use that promo code HOOKED. That promo code HOOKED. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and in Tennessee to bet. Which that
Can
leads
you
us.
get
Yes. Mm-hmm.
just for the sound effect for the Zen Sports advertisement? Can we get Ed Orgeron on to say hooked?
Yeah, we can just do that a lot. I don't know that he said hook, but we can definitely do hook. I do. That's the best impression I do. For some reason, my daughter's working on a Christopher Walken impression. I'm not sure why, but it's getting there. My impression, though, of Ed Orgeron is hands down the best and in the book. It's not even close. So this Tennessee baseball team goes to the College World Series. Big things expected out of some other cats as well. And there's one guy that got noted as one of the top 100, top 100 freshmen. And I'm glad he did. And it tells me that he has impressed Tennessee's coaches because a lot of these stories, a lot of these long form articles, this one from 24/7 comes from talking to coaches. And you know about one guy.
Iamaleava.
His first name is Nico, one of the top 100 freshmen in the sport of college football. But the other is Arion Carter. Arion Carter at linebacker really wowed some people as far as incoming freshmen. To me, it's him and everybody else as far as having a huge impact this year. It's Arion Carter and the field, in my opinion. Any disagreement with that? If I laid that out for our Zen Sports bet?
Actually, yes. So I would say probably maybe over Nico because we don't know if Nico's going to start. But
Which is Nico.
Iamaleava.
Sorry, go ahead.
two things. I've covered enough spring practices now where, Dave, I got to be honest. First off, linebacker's not much. It's not that far ahead of running back in terms of a bunch of random names crop up in spring practice that stand out at linebacker.
True.
And so I have to take what Arion Carter did with a grain of salt from spring practice. When you add in the fact that the defense is always supposed to be ahead of the offense in spring ball, like, again, it's very iffy what to believe with that. On top of that, Tennessee has a proven commodity at linebacker in Keenan Peely and a returner in Aaron Beasley. I think we're Tennessee. I still say it's going to be Jordan Matthews or Ricky Gibson. That's the star freshman of the group. And that's who I think 247 Sports missed out on. One of those cornerbacks will be every Vol fan's favorite cornerback, defensive back, midway through this year.
Could be. Here's what I like about Arion Carter that I don't think you like quite as much. And that is, I think he has the type of big playability sideline to sideline like a Jeremy Banks had last year. I don't know that Peely or Beasley have that quite as much. I like Beasley. I don't know that either one of those guys are the ones that really scare you on the entire field, which is why I think there's a hole for Arion Carter. I think that he is going to have a major impact. Now, if you give me both cornerbacks, yes, I would take Gibson or Matthews. But if I had to pick just one guy to have a major impact, it's him. Let's remember this too about Carter. He was here in the spring. He impressed people. It's hard for me not to think he's one of the top 4 or 5 linebackers as of mid-June, Caleb. So if he's that already and he continues to improve, he can be even better. I like a lot about his play, his athleticism, and what we hear about him. I don't know that Peely brings that to the table. And I think Beasley is somewhere in between as far as a very elite linebacker that can go sideline to sideline and that can also be disciplined in the box. Both are compliments, but I don't know that he's that guy that just runs around like crazy. I'm not comparing Arion Carter to Lawrence Taylor, but the guy that you just kind of let run around and do what he wants to do. To me, that's Arion Carter right now, and I don't see the other two guys fitting that sort of role. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I totally understand that. And that's why I understand why you would have Arion Carter on this list. I just don't think he's as sure of a bet as a defensive back on this list. And I think that's where I'm at, is that.
Let me ask you this. If they played three linebackers like back in the day, would you have him on this list instead of a nickelback, which is essentially the third linebacker?
And I'm a Nickelback fan, by the way. Y'all can hate me all day. Huge fan.
Nickelback's horrible. But anyway, would he be on your list or stronger on your list if they played three linebackers like back in the day?
Yes.
Then you'd have Peely Beasley. You'd have Peely Beasley Carter. Yeah,
I would have Peely Beasley and Carter at that point. And don't underestimate whether or not they might do that this year, because I could theoretically see, look, Beasley was a former safety. So he's a guy you can disguise coverages with a lot more than your typical linebacker. And so don't underestimate their potential to do this year, to kind of, I mean, I think one of the underrated things, something that has not been done yet in college football, I feel like, with the transition to a kind of more of a 4-2-5 nickel-based defense, is that I don't feel like coaches from the high school level have developed a player who could disguise the coverage where you don't know if they're going to line up at linebacker or as a extra defender in any given day. I think that's an underrated, unique thing coaches could tap into in football.
Yep, very fair. So who will be the top freshman on Tennessee's football team this upcoming season? I think it's Arion Carter in the field. I think Caleb, we're going to let him have two. He's going to go Matthews or Gibson in the field, and it's brought to you by Andy Mason at AndyMasonRealEstate.com. AndyMasonRealEstate.com will save you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars on your next real estate exchange. And they have the best service and the best prices in the biz. It's pretty simple. So go ahead and check out AndyMasonRealEstate.com. That's who I will be calling shortly when I make my next move later this summer. One that continually gets mentioned, and I don't want to sound like I'm throwing him under the bus, is Gabe Jeudy-Lally. I think Gabe Jeudy-Lally will have as big or bigger of an impact as any one freshman on this team.
Well, he's not a freshman, though.
Or he's a transfer, excuse me. So Gabe Jeudy-Lally was mentioned with Carter. As far as any incomer, I'm going to speak on that a lot. As far as any incomer, I think he'll have as big of an impact after having college experience, after having SEC experience. I just don't know that it's going to show up on the stat sheet. I think he's going to be a utility guy in the defensive backfield, Caleb, that's going to be able to play corner or safety, a lot of different positions. I don't think, though, that he's going to be the type of player that has 15 tackles for a loss at the end of the year. And we haven't even mentioned Dante Thornton, who, again, is not a freshman, is a transfer. But I love Gabe Jeudy-Lally. I don't want it to sound like I'm overlooking him at all. I like him a lot.
Yeah, I think if we're going over to newcomers, I think the transfers are going to have a bigger impact than the freshmen, because you're right, Dante Thornton, Gabe Jeudy-Lally, Keenan Peely, just those three alone are going to have. And and on the defensive line, I mean, John Gable Jr., Andres Carrick, Omar Norman Lott. I mean, we're talking almost everybody I named is either a projected starter or rotational player, where they're the first guy off the bench if there's an injury at multiple positions. So I think of that group, I mean, if we're going to newcomers, I'm saying probably John Campbell Jr., because Tennessee just needs they literally cleared up space at left tackle for him to take on that position.
Yeah, there's a difference between who we think it will be and who it needs to be. It needs to be John Campbell. I mean, they can survive without Gabe Jeudy-Lally having a big impact. They can survive without Arion Carter having a big impact. If John Campbell doesn't nail down that left tackle position, you got problems, Caleb.
Yes, I agree. That becomes a giant concern. I guess theoretically you can move J.J. Crawford back over to left tackle and start Joe Mincy at right tackle because they both played left tackle last year, but you're not where you want to be.
But they could have done that too when they had the injury issue at LSU. They could have moved Darnell Wright back over to the left side. I get the feeling when they make up their mind, they're not going back.
Yeah, I that's probably true because I guess once you're working in the spring, you want to get settled into that position and make it second nature, particularly when you're running the tempo that Hypo runs. But this could be that they are just that confident in John Campbell Jr. Maybe they feel like he really emerged and they know they can rely on him there. So it could be a good sign either way.
It's an overall interesting approach, to be honest with you, that you put your best offensive lineman on the right side. That's intriguing to me. They did it with Darnell Wright when they flip-flopped him from 2021 to 2022 from the left side to the right side. And I questioned it. I thought it was a really bad move at the time. I would have kept him on the left side, but I was dead wrong. And I'm more than willing to admit that when that happens. That's actually the third time I've been absolutely wrong when it comes to Tennessee football. Just the third time in 25 years. What do you think about that, Caleb?
What are the other two? Is what I want to know.
Oh, I can't remember.
Were you a Brandon Stewart over Peyton Manning guy?
I was not a Brandon Stewart over Peyton Manning guy. I was a Todd Helton guy. In exactly 2 minutes, we're going to tell you why Deion Sanders should strike some fear in Tennessee fans, and also why he's being a little bit hypocritical and the most overrated coach in the SEC and beyond in college football. So we've got a lot to get to. Hang tight as we'll be back in just 2 minutes.
Sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry. I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
When you want a hard cider that's easy to enjoy, one that's crafted to perfection, you need Tennessee Cider Company. Some say it's the signature cider of the South. Others say it's the cure to your craving. They all say you'll savor every sip. With a selection of ciders free to sample, all it takes is one taste. Visit tncidercompany.com for more information, as well as to shop our ciders and merchandise online. Thirsty yet? Doors open at 10 a.m.
Who's this guy?
Hello, who is it?
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Boy, all you have to do is say Deion Sanders' name, and the message board tends to light up. All right, here's why Tennessee should be concerned about Deion Sanders before we get into his latest comments on the collective. There is a bond between Deion Sanders, Colorado's outgoing head coach, and Boo Carter, which is one of Tennessee's I would say, most significant targets, not only because of his rating, because of the fact that he is in state as well. You just don't want to lose guys like that. That has a very, very Derek Dooley, Von Bell type of feel if Tennessee were to lose out on Boo Carter out of the Chattanooga area. So there's a connection there. Boo is listed as an athlete, but is probably going to play cornerback. So you need to be aware, if you're a Tennessee fan or an SEC fan, of Deion Sanders. Is Deion Sanders going to roll in and wreck Georgia or Alabama or Florida or Tennessee's recruiting class? No. But could he take one or two guys that affects Tennessee or Georgia or Alabama? Certainly. And he's going to be able to cherry pick some of those guys. I believe that is going to happen. And yes, Boo Carter, the defensive back out of the Chattanooga area, no relation to Boo Ridley. If you notice, I'm not wearing contacts nor glasses, thanks to Campbell Cunningham, Taylor, and Hahn. They did my LASIK surgery. They can do cataracts as well. And they are local. They're phenomenal. And they have the local vision centers for your annual checkups. But man, I got the LASIK and I can see far, I can see close. It is unbelievable. Absolutely love it. So Deion, a bit hypocritical. What's he saying lately? I did find one of his comments last week. Pat Narduzzi came out, Pitt's head coach, who is so far behind the times. And he's essentially said that NIL is going to destroy college football, which I know some of you on the message board agree with. But Deion's response was, I don't know who Pat Narduzzi is, which was pretty funny to me. But Caleb, he's gone a step further. And I know Deion wants to be in the news, so we're not going to kowtow to that all the time. But in this particular case, what did he have to say about collectives? Because Tennessee has one of the best collectives in college football.
Yes, so he said that NIL is not a problem with him, that collectives are. And his quote was, let's talk about NIL, name, image, and likeness. What kid out of high school that is notable enough that a CEO of a major company is going to lay it on the line for a kid that ain't nobody know? So it's not NIL. His argument is that collectives are being used to effectively recruit kids who haven't proven anything. And he has a problem with that. My response is, so what? I mean, Deion Sanders is getting paid as a coach, as a like a D1 coach right now. Never proven anything as a D1 coach at that level. So again, so what? You like NFL draft picks have guaranteed salaries before they ever proved anything. A lot of them get endorsements. LeBron James got an $80 million shoe deal with Nike before he set foot on the court. Michael Jordan got his deal with Nike before he set foot on the court. So what? I think Deion is realizing that after going through all the transfer portal stuff, he realizes Colorado has some hesitant NIL collectives, NIL CEO people, and he's going to have trouble recruiting the way he wants to because of that.
I think it's the same thing that the PGA Tour just went through with NIL. I don't think they realized how great the money was. When the PGA Tour went out there and tried to fight Saudi money coming in, and now as of last week, they combined forces because the money was too great. So I think Deion Sanders went to Colorado and kind of looked at it as, hey, that was a pretty good football program, and he was a player, right? You remember the Buffs back in the day, and when he was at Florida State, they were competing for national titles with Bill McCartney there. And I think he looked at it and he said, kind of the money's all equal, right? Colorado, their collective, if they have one, can bring as much to the table as anybody else. Well, what I think he's learning, and that's not the case. He's used to football in the South, both as an NFL player, a high school player, a college player, and the support from Colorado is not going to be the same as it is at Tennessee or so many other schools as it would have been at Florida State, even though he was not ever really in the running for that job. But the money also is not only not there, but it might not be as organized. It might take a year or two to get Colorado's potential collective even close to its potential. At that point, Caleb, Deion Sanders could be looking at his next job. So he wants to get this fixed immediately. He would love a collective that would pay high school players. Don't tell me he wouldn't. Yes, it's hypocritical. But the bottom line is he has a glass ceiling at Colorado. That's what Tennessee and so many other schools really don't have, because there's more money than there is demand from the high school prospects to get you there. Same thing with the PGA Tour and the Live Tour. The simple fact is there was more money. There was plenty of money to satisfy the needs of all the PGA players if they all wanted to jump. Some didn't for various reasons. There just ain't the type of money at Colorado. They're the PGA Tour, while the top programs in the nation, like the Tennessee Alabamas and the Georgias, they are essentially the Live Tour. There's a lot more money there.
Yeah, I agree. And that's where you're right. He thought his name would also help, kind of making Colorado the glamorous job would make some people want to get involved. But you're right. People, the business community in Colorado doesn't care about Colorado football the way the business community in Knoxville cares about Tennessee and football. It's not just an advertising investment for them. It's a lot of them are Tennessee fans. And so they're willing to buy some players to see Tennessee do well. You really don't have that out in Colorado. He did make one point that I think is fair. So when he criticized collectives, he started saying kids who are doing this, letting collectives recruit them, are going to make the wrong decision because they're going to pick the school that's not best for their NFL future, where the real money is. They're going to pick it based on their collective future. But the evidence is there that they're not doing that. Again, Alabama just had the #1 class in school history. They don't have a top 5 collective. Those kids didn't go to Alabama because they were offered more money from Alabama than they were from Texas A&M or Tennessee. They went to Alabama because they were smart enough to know that as an offensive lineman or as a defensive back, I'm going to get coached and prepared for the NFL better under Nick Saban than I will anywhere else. So my chance at generational wealth is best going to play for Nick Saban. I don't think kids are that stupid. I think they're smart enough to know that.
Agreed. John Calipari uses the phrase stumbling over nickels and trying to get millions. And he's right. And it's a slight oversimplification, but you have to be at least on the playing field. I don't think Colorado is going to be on the playing field from 1 to 85. Do I think they could go out and target a kid like Boo Carter and probably get him with some NIL money? Yeah, but Caleb, can they get 25, 30 of those guys like the bigger schools can with better support? Absolutely not.
No, not at all. And pre-NIL, again, I think Deion Sanders thought the glamorous brand he brings would help Colorado. The only school I can think of the only 2 schools over the last 40 years, Dave, that I think have actually had success embracing like a glam type of college football brand are USC and Miami. Is there anybody else?
Man, not that I can think of off the top of my head. You're kind of talking about a nouveau riche type of team, right? A team that,
Pete Carroll was open about going all Hollywood when he was at USC. Like he had Hollywood and that community embrace USC, and it worked for recruiting.
No, true. I don't know of another program out there that doesn't have tradition that you could just throw money at it and it's immediately going to be relevant. I mean, I guess there's an amount of money if Saudis wanted to get involved in any particular program, I guess they could change it financially. But I don't see that there's a program
and then
out
start
there.
Dismembering people who cover their team negatively. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's all kinds of philosophical and moral reasons not to like what's going on there. You have to have some sort of foundational base of tradition, right? I mean, you couldn't just roll in to MTSU with $500 million a year to spend, and you're just going to win over guys. Could you?
You have to have one of 2 things. You have to have a foundational base of tradition, or you have to have really untapped potential. Like, again, remember when Howard Schnellenberger took over Miami in 1979 or wherever, what he realized was this was a laughingstock football program, a private school in Coral Gables. What could they bring to the table? And he's like, oh, there's a lot of South Florida talent, and I'll just build a fence around South Florida, and I'll win a national championship doing that. That's how Miami grew without any tradition whatsoever in the past. I think there are schools...
No, I was going to say, and LSU was the same. They were a sleeping giant throughout the 80s and the 90s, And then
Yes.
Nick Saban went there. Florida was the same. They were a sleeping giant in the 80s, and Steve Spurrier went there. So you either have to, I see what you're saying, you have to have the talent or you have to have the tradition base.
Right. Or you have to have such a level of glam that's untapped which Colorado doesn't have. To give you an example, I've been saying this for a long time. I don't know why the Big 12 or a Power 5 conference doesn't target UNLV. Vegas is where everything is going for sports right now. And I'm telling you, UNLV is going to be the coolest school to be a part of in 10 years. And they already got basketball national titles, a couple in the 90s. So, I mean, with the way sports, and by the way, sports gambling is more exciting for college football than any other sport. By far, sports gambling is best with college football. UNLV is where it's at. Somebody listen to me. SEC, go out there and get them. Vegas is going to be awesome for college football.
So Deion's best case scenario is either make noise. Okay, 3 levels. Fail miserably, make noise, or win championships.
Yeah, his best case scenario is make noise. His Barris
You don't
is...
think he can win a champion? He can win a Pac-12 championship.
Oh, you're right. Now with USC and UCLA out of the Pac-12, you're right, but they're going to the Big 12 soon. Do you think Colorado could outdo TCU? I think TCU is a better program to be a part of than Colorado, honestly.
See, to me, that's where it gets dicey because Colorado they'd have to win out 8 to 10 guys based off NIL money a year, not 3 or 4. And I think they're going to be in the 3 or 4 range. But if they can get to 8 to 10, then if you cut I always use the old ratio with the recruiting, cut it in half. If you have 5 stars, probably 2.5 are going to be good. So then if you get 5 really impact players a year at Colorado, you're doing something there. That leads us to the most overrated coach in college football right now is Caleb Calhoun. We discussed this at 3:15 this morning in the production meeting, and we said to ourselves, we're not going to share names before the show. We're going to do the show not in the parking lot, but live right there in front of everybody. Somebody's already taken mine, and it's Ryan Day of Ohio State. So I got to go first. Ha, ha, ha.
Hey, now.
I'm going Ryan Day of Ohio State, and I challenge somebody to beat me on that one. But we have a Beamer vote, which I would have said last November before he beat Clemson and Tennessee, but I have retracted that stance.
And also this isn't a debate about which coaches we don't believe in because no one believed in Beamer. No one's overrating Shane Beamer, honestly. So,
right.
Yeah,
all right. If Beamer's at all good, then he can't be overrated. Here's a thought on Steve Sarkisian, perhaps at Texas. That's a pretty good one.
Steve Sarkisian's in my top 3.
Oh, we got a top 3. Before we get to that, let me tell everybody you have to go to crafttreats.com. We're getting ready to get some puppies, and I can't wait to get the chill pills to get them chill because I haven't had puppies in a long time. We're getting 2. My wife's talked me into it. And with the chill pills, they've got the CBD derivative, and it can help with their anxiety, and they're going to have some because they're Yorkies. And they're also going to it'll help with arthritis one day when they get old, and I'll cry again like I lost my last dog a couple weeks ago. And but with the Craft Treats, use the promo code off the hook, and you get 20% off any of their products, CBD or not. So go to crafttreats.com, use the promo code off the hook. So what are your 3, Caleb? The big 3. Caleb brings it each and every day to the program. Your big 3 top overrated coaches in college football.
So number 3 is Deion Sanders. And the only reason I say he's not higher is I don't know if he's being rated. I don't know if he's gotten the same level of love yet as the other 2 people I'm about to name. But again, he's getting praised for winning a championship at Jackson State when he used his name and NIL collectives at Jackson State to get what otherwise would be Division I players to go there. And so he had a Division I players against a bunch of other Division II schools. Of course, he was going to go 9-1, 10-0.
Okay, so I want to inspect one at a time. So are you saying that Deion will not have success at Colorado? Are you saying he's not a good coach, or is he just gotten so much promotion because of his name that there's no way he can live up to that?
I think he's gotten so much promotion because of his name. There's no way he can live up to that, particularly at Colorado. So, yes, I think he's overrated.
Using that definition, there is nobody more overrated in all of coaching right now. I mean, he hasn't done anything.
Nothing.
I mean, you can pick NBA, you can pick Major League Baseball, we can go down to managers, whatever you want. But using that definition, it's Deion and everybody else. Now, he could prove us both wrong. We agree with that, right?
Right. Yes, he could.
Okay. So who else?
I need Deion Sanders should be an agent. I need to learn from Deion Sanders how to like make people love you so much.
Yes. All right. So who else is in Caleb's top 3?
Okay. Number 2 is Steve Sarkisian. And I continue to believe Steve Sarkisian is overrated. And I don't know what it's going to take to change people's minds on this, but that was his second year at Texas last year, and it wasn't that special. Usually your second year is a year, particularly at a school like Texas, is when you can explode. So I got Steve Sarkisian at number 2. You disagree? Do you think he's good?
Well, I don't know. He derailed his life for a while and his career with the alcohol problems. I think what he's done in terms of recruiting, but that could be a lot of NIL, but it wasn't with Arch Manning, so he was able to get him. So I'm impressed. He's got Nick Saban's respect because he went through that coaching rehab, no pun intended. So kudos to that. Caleb, I'm not sure yet. So I hear too many good things from the coaching community about him. So I'm going to withhold judgment right now. But
yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if you're right in a couple years. Oh, vote for Jimbo Fisher.
Last year, Jimbo Fisher was overrated. He's not overrated anymore. I think most people agree he's a bad coach now. Or what?
But how about as a whole in his career? If he doesn't have Jameis Winston, he's not winning a national title, and he's not signing $100 million.
I mean,
contract.
he's absolutely the most overpaid coach in the history of college sports, like by a long shot too. No one like that. That was insane that he got that, but I don't consider him overrated anymore because I think that people are down on him now. No, my number 1 is another rehabbed Nick Saban assistant.
It's Butch Jones.
No, it's not.
He's not.
Mario Cristobal.
You do not like Mario Cristobal. The peeps in Tuscaloosa at one point thought he would be Nick Saban's replacement, but they also thought that at Mel Tucker. The people I talked to in Tuscaloosa think that if Nick Saban left tomorrow, it would be Cristobal. But they thought that about Mel Tucker after the great year at Michigan State.
Also, for 40 years, the people in Tuscaloosa felt that if you touched Bear Bryant's leg, you were qualified to be a head coach at Alabama.
I'm just telling you what I hear. I'm not trying to start a fight. But Caleb, why do you why that direction? Why do you go that way?
I think Cristobal. One, I think the FAU schools are very underrated jobs. Again, that area of Florida, you're in the Sun Belt or Conference USA. And again, it's kind of like Louisiana, Dave, lower level of talent, but you can just go get some guys to run your program with that level of talent. And he had 2 winning seasons. Things fell apart pretty quick. Went to Oregon, and he's coasting off 2 back-to-back Pac-12 titles and 3 Pac-12 North titles. Okay, one of those Pac-12 titles was 2020. He went 4-3. That was COVID year. Nothing counts during COVID. I'm trying to tell people that the COVID year doesn't count unless you're the SEC and you played a full season.
No, I'm with you. Now, let me tell you why Ryan Day is the right answer and your 3 aren't.
I mean, I don't like Ryan Day. I just don't think he's overrated because I think his seat's starting to get warm there, but I'll listen.
Okay. They essentially ran off Urban Meyer. They thought Ryan Day was the golden boy and Urban Meyer had baggage, but they didn't think they were going to take a monster step down. I can tell you this from good sources at Ohio State. They didn't think they were going to take a monster step down, and arguably they haven't. They've still competed for championships, but I would say Urban Meyer's a Hall of Fame coach, so they have taken a major step down, Caleb, in my opinion. So if you run off a Hall of Fame coach, the 3 guys you mentioned, all fantastic candidates, but you didn't run off a college football Hall of Fame coach to get this guy. And that's exactly what they did. They wanted to make that transition and that move, and they made it in my opinion, way too hastily. And part of the reasons because Tennessee made a run at their defense coordinator, Greg Schiano, and they thought that staff was going to get torn apart. And that's why they kind of promised Ryan Day the job before you know it, sort of thing. Wink, wink. You're not going to have to wait around for 5 years. So you ran a Hall of Famer out, essentially, to get Ryan Day. That would be like running off Philip Fulmer to get John Chavis.
There is yes, but Dave, there's a huge factor you're missing here, which is had they not run Urban Meyer off, Urban Meyer has the great fortune of having bailed on programs before the damage he caused was fully seen. He bailed on Florida before the damage of his lack of discipline really showed. Had he stayed at Ohio State, recruiting would have really started to suffer because Urban Meyer's reputation at that point as a guy who didn't care when his Florida players were out here murdering people, and then didn't care when his assistant coach was out here beating his wife, okay, and was covering up for it. That was going to show up in recruiting, and the program would have collapsed. You had to run him off at that point.
I agree, but I've seen the flip side where they hold on. ADs will hold on to those coaches until the bitter end. There has to be like a double felony before they'll make that move. Rocky Top Tom is throwing high, hot heat, just like the Vols did in the Super Regional. He says Monty Kiffin's son is incredibly overrated. Let's go there for a second. Here's where I stand on Lane Kiffin. So he's one of the few coaches I actually developed a relationship with, and that, you know, I could call him and that sort of thing. So maybe I'm biased. I do not think he is overrated at all because I think he is a fantastic offensive mind. I think that he was standing on third, thought he hit a triple when he was at Tennessee and with the Raiders, and when Washington made a run at him and Tennessee got him instead. But overrated as a coach, I'm not willing to go there. I think he's a special play caller. I think he's a special offensive mind. I think he derailed his career when he left Tennessee too quickly for a school in Southern California that had NCAA issues pressing down upon them. So I ask you, I say no. I ask you, is Lane Kiffin overrated?
Not as a football mind. As a CEO running a program, yes. I think Lane Kiffin is very reckless. And I think he takes risk that, quite honestly, let's go back to his Tennessee year, that 1 year. Okay, let's hypothetically think if Lane Kiffin stays at Tennessee and doesn't go to USC. Lane Kiffin was so desperate to sell himself and what he was doing that he took the most toxic recruiting class in the history of college football in 2009 and put that thing together.
More felons than all SEC players, and you can actually look that up.
Yes, exactly. And it was a top 10 class, and he bragged about it. And halfway through the year, Nuke Richardson out here goes out and decides to rob a gas station. And by the way, Nuke Richardson was the player that was the catalyst for Lane Kiffin taking that shot at Urban Meyer that made him the most hated.
He also took a shot at Pahokee. He's like, have you ever been there? You want to get out of there. I'm like, how can you go back there and recruit? Travis says Lane Kiffin has proven absolutely nothing on his own. That is, all right, Travis, I'm not trying to argue with you, but I would present this. One of the things I really liked about Lane Kiffin when he was hired at Tennessee, and maybe this is a whole different segment, Caleb, all of a sudden, but one of the things I did like about Lane Kiffin is that he went out and he hired the Ed Orgerons, the Frank Wilsons. I could go on and on and on. Of course, his dad, who he had an inside with Monty, but he did delegate a lot. And I thought that was mature beyond his years. So I think to take a shot at him and say he hasn't done anything on his own is unfair. I'm pretty proud of what we put together each and every day on offthehooksports.com. I sure as bleep aren't doing it on my own. Caleb are a big part of what we do and a huge monstrous part. So I actually think that's a strength. Now, maybe Monty Kiffin opened the door, but if you don't call your dad and he's one of the best defensive coaches in the history of football, you're just an idiot.
Yeah, see, Dave, I push back on that. And I've covered enough college football now to say that I've seen enough Tennessee hires to know this much. You hire the coach for the coach, not for the staff they can bring in. And because staff comes and goes. Mike Hamilton hired Lane Kiffin solely because of the staff Lane Kiffin could bring in. I screamed at the time Brian Kelly was a better hire. I think I've been proven right on that, by the way.
Kelly's a better. You have, and I would have argued with you. I love the splash hire of Lane Kiffin. I don't know that I would have argued with you based off pedigree and what they did, but I love the splash hire and the staff he could put together.
Yeah, see, the thing with the staff you can put together is staff members get hired away. They come and go. Let's think of the great coaches of the past 10, 15 years. We named one a minute ago, Urban Meyer. Yes, he's a sociopath, but let's be honest. Urban Meyer, his success has been immune to his staff members. He won national titles with Charlie Strong and Dan Mullen. And then he won one with Luke Fickell and Tom Herman. I mean, it didn't matter. Nick Saban has won how many national championships with how many different staff members? Josh Heupel right now. You think anybody cares that Tennessee just lost its offensive coordinator? You think anybody cares if Tim Banks goes? No, the person who matters is Josh Heupel at the top. And so when the only time this matters is when you have a CEO like Dabo Swinney who does hire the right staff, but it's not like he's like, I can get the big name. No, he finds the guy that's an up-and-comer that has a cutting-edge offense to run his system. And so Dabo has done a very good job at identifying staff members of the future. Just saying I've got connections to these really high-profile coaches, well, they're going to get hires elsewhere. I mean, Ed Orgeron since then went and won a national title. I mean, that's hilarious to say, but he did. And Monty Kiffin ended up going to the NFL. I don't believe you hire a coach because of the big name staff members they can bring in, because staff comes and goes.
Man, if somebody sits down, and I understand that the staff will come and go in 2 or 3 or 4 years, but if I'm an athletic director and I'm interviewing Lane Kiffin and he said, I'm bringing me, no, you're not getting the job. You better say you're bringing Monty. You better say you're tight with a guy named Ed Orgeron. You better say that you're tight with a guy named Frank Wilson, who's one of the top recruiters in the state of Louisiana. You better bring all that to the table. I'm not saying it's sustainable for a decade, but if you don't bring that to the table, you're not getting hired.
But see, that's the problem. As a matter of fact, I just named Ed Orgeron. How do you think Ed Orgeron got the LSU job in the first place? He sold LSU on the connections that he has and the staff he could bring. And to his credit, he brought.
But he was right.
He was right. And guess what happened when those guys left? The program collapsed.
But would anybody other than Alabama and Georgia not take a one-year wonder and the subsequent disaster that was Ed Orgeron if they had a national title in their pocket?
Yes, you do. But I don't think Tennessee was hiring Lane Kiffin for 5 years. I think they were thinking 20, 25, whatever years when they hired Lane Kiffin during that time. So I don't, again, that is such a flash in the pan. What happens because if you don't win the national title and those coaches go and your program falls apart, well, then you sacrifice the long-term stability of your program for one splash year that got your staff members hired away.
So are you telling me that Josh Heupel, hands down, is a better coach than Lane Kiffin? First, I want to tell you, it's brought to you by Vassy Lawn and Garden. Man alive, it's worth the drive right there in Cleveland, Tennessee. Make the drive from Nashville, Knoxville, or Chattanooga with their buying power. They'll save you thousands of dollars on your industrial or commercial mowers, residential as well. Go to Vassy.com to learn more. They bring you the Vol Report with Jacob Warren that is up on our YouTube channel now. Vassy Lawn and Garden, man alive, it's worth the drive. Vassy.com, Toro, count on it. So you're telling me that based off what you said, the assistants don't matter as much because if Banks or any of Tennessee's coaches left, Heupel would be able to replace them. You're saying that Josh Heupel is a significantly better coach than Lane Kiffin right now. That's your stance.
I'd say better, not significantly, because the thing you have to remember, what we're missing in all of this, Lane is a good offensive mind. If you're going to make the case,
Josh Heupel now,
that's why I said Heupel's better. Heupel's a better coach than Lane. I'm saying we were debating over whether or not you should hire a coach for staff. That doesn't mean I discount what Lane knows about offense. I think he's a great offensive coach. But yes, Heupel's better. Heupel's a better offensive coach. And I think that's borne out in facts. I think that's proven at this point that he's a better offensive coach. Heupel's had more offensive success. And if you question it, Don't forget, before Tennessee, Heupel single-handedly got Missouri back to a bowl game in year 2 when they were the most disastrous program in the SEC in 2017. Lane Kiffin, and he's got Tennessee rolling. Lane Kiffin got fired from USC. Our defense of Lane Kiffin is that USC was a program under sanctions, probation, yada, yada, yada. Well, what the heck was Tennessee when Josh Heupel took over?
Right. Fair point. 2 minutes. Smoky hot takes coming up. Who's the biggest overachiever in Tennessee athletics history, either from high school to college or college to pro? We discussed with Caleb Calhoun. I am Dave Hooker. Stay tuned.
To own the more that owns every job, then get to Vassy Lawn and Garden in Cleveland and get you a Toro. I'm David Vassy, here to talk to you about Toro. With a Toro Zero Turn, you'll get more out of every minute and you'll reach the finish line faster. At Vassy's, we like to say, no matter if you're mowing 3 acres a week or 11 lawns a day, homeowners and business owners alike find confidence in equipment they can trust from top to bottom.
Vassy Lawn and Garden, Highway 60 North in Cleveland.
Man alive, it's worth the drive.
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
Our family has been creating one-of-a-kind pieces of jewelry in West Knoxville since 1986. Each piece is a combination of unique processes that bring your idea to life. Every day in our shop, a truly special item with a story all its own is being manufactured in our facility, bringing the history and family sentiment into a whole new generation of life. We're grateful that you chose us to be Knoxville's best jeweler, a title that we value and respect. Because to me, being a jeweler and owning a jewelry store are not the same thing. I'm Rick Terry, I'm a jeweler, and we want to be your jeweler. Kingston Pike and Campbell Station Road in the heart of Farragut, and downtown on Gay Street right next to the Tennessee Theater.
With all that sun, sand, and salt water, the beach is a very relaxing place. Unless you wear contacts. Ow! Open your eyes to the best the beach has to offer with LASIK vision correction from Campbell Cunningham Laser Center. Ah.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Technology is fantastic, except this AI thing scares me. Somebody punched in AI, have Guns N' Roses do a Poison song. And if you didn't know, by the way, Guns N' Roses is not a hair band, just for the record. They are an incredible band. They're not.
I love Guns N' Roses. They're still a hair band, bro.
No, they're not. No, they're not. They are not. They're more Zeppelin than they are Poison, by the way. But they can do this thing now where it's Axl singing like a Poison song. And you have to listen close to figure out that it's AI, but it's a little bit too close and a little bit scary. I'll tell you what's scary is those old apps that you may use because they're not forward thinking at all. They just throw them out there. Zen Sports is the new sports book in Tennessee. They have revolutionized the way you earn sports betting rewards with Zen Sports. Your rewards are cash rewards. You bet with real money, and now you are rewarded with it too. The cash is back with Zen Sports. Use the promo code HOOKED, and there will be no cap on what you put into your account. And it's not the only way that Zen Sports makes betting better. We've got peer-to-peer betting coming up as well. So Zen Sports just getting started. Download the app, use the promo code HOOKED, and you're uncapped when you make your first deposit. Gambling problem, call 1-800-889-9789. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 and over and in Tennessee to bet. So Caleb and I other than having a pretty strong knowledge of Tennessee athletics, we're both kind of NBA guys that I've figured out. And what does that have to do with Tennessee football? Well, I'll go ahead and tell you. Nikolai Jokic, in case you haven't watched, is one heck of an overachiever. I mean, here is a guy who seems to be some sort of combination of Bill Russell and Magic Johnson. The way he runs the point forward or point center, whatever you call it, on one side, and then on the flip side, he's able to be one of the better defending big men in the game. And also he can shoot a little like Steph Curry. That may be a reach. But I ask you this, Caleb Calhoun, let's not reach, because we don't have to, of players that were either mildly rated, lower rated in high school, and really hit the race running when they got to college, or were okay in college, and Tennessee athletes that went on to the pros. So why don't we do that as part of 4 Downs? 4 Downs is right now. Caleb, I'm going to lean on you to give me your thoughts of the greatest overachievers in Tennessee athletics history. It's smoky hot takes right here on Off the Hook Sports, and it's 4 Downs.
4 Downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 Downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Okay, so we started with NBA, the 3 that I came up with. And first of all, we need Cooper Mays, Tennessee starting center, to tell us what down it is.
Coop here. First down.
Thanks, Coop. Chris Lofton, CJ Watson, or Grant Williams. That's first down. If you had to pick between those 3, who's the biggest overachiever from Tennessee basketball to what they did in the NBA?
Oh, so this is from college to the NBA, not high school to college.
We're going to do both. So we're going to get to your high school ones as well.
Okay, so for college to NBA, it's got to be CJ Watson. And I respect Grant Williams, but Grant Williams is a first rounder. He was a first round draft pick, and he's doing pretty much what you would expect a mid-tier first round draft pick to do. CJ Watson was undrafted, had to go play in Europe, and then came back and spent 10 years in the NBA. I think had a fling with one of Floyd Mayweather's girls. So, it's a pretty good career.
By the way, Michael Jordan's son dating Scottie Pippen's ex-wife. Do we want to get into that? No, we don't. What down is it, Cooper Mays?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right, give me a football cat that was underrated going from high school to college and turned out to be an overachiever. What do you got on second down, Caleb Calhoun?
Dave, you cover recruiting more than I did during this time, but I have to go here. My guy is Travis Stevens. I mean, he was significantly behind Jamal Lewis and Travis Henry when it came to the recruiting rankings during that time, wasn't he?
Yes. And I'm going to go one older than you that's almost the same thing. It's Tony Thompson. Who remembers that?
That's another good one. Yes.
They're almost the same dude, are they not? Guys in front of them banged up, and then they come in and they're smaller guys. There are all kinds of parallels between the two. Yeah, I can roll with Travis Stevens. I think that's a very good one.
Yeah, that's totally. Remember, he redshirted in '99 because Jamal Lewis came back and he knew he was going to be pushed out. He wanted to make sure he had at least 1 year to himself to play. So he purposely redshirted in '99 so he could play in 2001 when he did. But Tony Thompson is a good one. He stayed, even though Chuck Webb got the nod, and Chuck Webb was a better running back, and so was Reggie Cobb. But yeah, Tony Thompson is a legend for staying.
Yeah, and I've got some more that I want to throw out. The message boards lighten it up. Great job. We had one with Tobias Harris. Tobias Harris, though, was highly rated coming out of high school. I don't think he was a good fit. Now, Alvin Kamara is an interesting one, not to sidetrack, then we'll get to third down and the rest of yours. Alvin Kamara is an interesting one because when a guy doesn't make it at Alabama, goes to junior college, I think to myself, it's 50-50 chance he's going to bust. And then when he doesn't get the playing time that he should have gotten, I think 50-50, he's going to be a malcontent, right? He didn't do any of that. So based off what I thought about him coming in, Alvin Kamara, for a different weird reason, even though he was highly rated in high school, deserves to be on this list. Some way, shape, form, or fashion.
He was also a 5-star junior college transfer when Tennessee got him, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know.
The only thing that made him underrated.
I just have such a little faith in JUCO guys.
The only thing that made Alvin Kamara underrated, two things. He had some personal character flaws, which got him out of it, which is why he was out of Alabama in the first place. And Butch Jones just didn't have the IQ points to the amount of brain cells necessary to know that you should give him the ball more.
Okay. What down is it now, Cooper Mace?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
You notice his intro, it gets bigger and longer till we get the all SEC. All right, who else we got?
We're now doing college. What about high school to college basketball, right?
High school to college basketball. Love it.
This one's the easiest one in the history of the world. It's Chris Lofton. I mean, there's not even a debate.
Yeah, it gets passed over by his in-state team in Kentucky and turns out to be an all-SEC player. Yeah.
Two-time All-American. Grant Williams is close, by the way. For those who don't know, Grant Williams was also a 3-star, but I think Chris Lofton was. I don't know who was better at Tennessee, but I think Chris Lofton was more overlooked than Grant Williams was coming out.
The only reason Chris Lofton wasn't overlooked is that he was from Kentucky and Kentucky didn't take him. So it made him a newsworthy name in college basketball recruiting, but still Kentucky passed on him. All right. What down is it now, Cooper Mays?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
That's second down.
One.
Coop, come on. Coop.
Is this the Colorado, Missouri official from 1990?
That's going on. I didn't know that you knew that game.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. Fourth down.
Yes, it is fourth down. All right. So what's your ultimate example of greatest overachiever? And should Joshua Dobbs be on this list? I did not think he was going to go to the NFL and hang on for almost.
We still haven't done football to NFL yet. We still haven't done college to NFL yet.
Okay, let's go. Joshua Dobbs. Is he on your list?
No, because there's an obvious one for college to NFL, and you can feel however you want to feel about him, and that's fine. But it's obviously Arion Foster. I mean, the guy was undrafted in the NFL, and he became a 4-time Pro Bowler and a 2-time leading rusher. You can't beat that.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Another vote for Jason Witten. Jason Witten surprised me because he did so at tight end. It didn't surprise me that he was an elite athlete. I thought he was very good, but I thought he would do so at defensive end. They moved him about 3 weeks into.
Everybody knew he was a tight end. It's just former lied to Jason Witten and told him you'll play defensive end, which was why he committed to Tennessee and not Michigan.
I have to be honest, and I was there at the time, Caleb. I didn't think he'd play tight end because they didn't utilize the tight end. I thought it would have been a waste of talent.
Well,
turns out you're right, but at the time I didn't think they'd move him. I was very surprised the day they moved him, and I remember Jason Witten was very surprised as well.
We're also forgetting the reason they didn't utilize the tight end at the time was, as you've pointed out, David Martin didn't want to play tight end, and they just needed extra blocking tight ends to keep their running game going. But it wasn't like they hadn't used tight ends in the past. I mean, they used Von Reeves a lot in the early 90s.
Yep. Smoky Mountain Red says, I want Caleb on my sports trivia team next time, as do I. If we do Sports Jeopardy, it's what is the guy that knows everything? Caleb Calhoun. City Heating and Air Conditioning, portions of the program brought to you by City Heat and Air. Go to cityheatandair.com. Integrity matters. You may not need a whole new unit. You may just need some coolant or a part. Well, they'll take care of you. So before we get to the all-time just overachiever from high school to college and then college to the pros, I remind you to go to City Heat and Air. City Heat and Air, 50 years in East Tennessee. Integrity matters. So, Caleb, the all-time high school to the University of Tennessee is
the all-time overachiever. All-time. This is really, really, really tough, guys.
I feel like we're missing a lot. And
one college one I wanted to name was Chris White on the 1985 secondary.
Great one. That's a great one. And I've got a few from the 90s that I would throw out there, and I don't know their recruiting rankings because that wasn't a big thing, but I know Dominique Stevenson was kind of just he was just kind of thought of as a throw-in with the Al Wilsons and the Raynoch Thompsons of the world. Okay. I know I'm mentioning Celebrate 98 because that's what we did. I know I mentioned the 98 teams because of that, but how about a Steve Johnson who was out of Georgia, started the entire season, but he gets a little overlooked because of Deion Grant and Fred White and Dwayne Goodrich on the other side.
Yeah, but we need a guy who was unheralded coming out of high school and had a successful college and NFL career. That was unheralded coming out of both. And I love Steve Johnson, but he didn't really have much of an NFL career, to be fair.
And Mr. Jones says Hendon Hooker, if transfers count. Hendon was a 4-star though coming out of high school.
He was a 4-star, and most people had agreed that Hendon should have been starting over Joe Milton. That was a vanity move by Josh Heupel because he signed Joe Milton, and he did not want to believe he was wrong in who he targeted. I'm just going to say it. I'm sorry to be unfair, but it's true.
It's not unfair. We've had a couple of votes for Cordero Patterson.
He was a 4-star JUCO transfer. I mean, everybody knew he was going to. You covered that team, right? The 2012 team, or were you already at ESPN?
2012. Yes, 2012 is when I went to ESPN.
Okay. So yeah, I can't say underrated with Cordero Patterson. I think we knew how good he was going to be.
So who we got then? Are we saying recruiting rankings have gotten that good?
They have been pretty good. I'm trying to think. Montario Hardesty would have had he not gotten hurt in the NFL, because he was a guy who was completely overlooked when he played, and then finally got his starting shot in 2009, and then became
unfortunately his knees were already blown before he actually got to the NFL. I that's the one guy I felt bad about. How's your knee? You had to ask every single week. Okay, here's a really good one that didn't go to Tennessee, but Randall Cobb.
Most underrated athlete ever out of the state of Tennessee. Was overlooked coming out of high school and coming out of college, and made it. Yeah, that was. I don't know where he stood. Okay, what about this? I don't know where he ranked. He was part of that legendary class, but I don't think he was highly touted. But Cedric Wilson, like a 5'10" receiver that was that small to be Tennessee's go-to receiver 2 years in a row, and then become a pretty solid NFL player.
Yeah, I think if you're the guy who puts together recruiting rankings, you probably don't know what coaches know, and that is he would come in and out of breaks at 100 miles an hour. There was no slowdown for him. So I think a coach would look at that and say, whoa, that guy's really good. I don't care how many stars he has. Whereas an analyst might say, give him a 3-star because he's 5'10". So you bring up a really good point. The reason that Tennessee didn't get Randall Cobb, for the record, is because they didn't recruit him heavily. Finally, Trooper Taylor convinced him to come to Tennessee, and then Trooper Taylor got passed over and took the Oklahoma State job. He got passed over as an offensive coordinator for a guy named Dave Clausen. So there you go. That's your little piece of history.
Yeah. Oh, I've got it. I've got my guy.
You got your guy. I love it.
It's somebody everybody forgets about. Scott Wells.
Oh, marvelous.
Like this
marvelous. 3-star. Yeah. 3-star. I remember interviewing him when he signed with Tennessee, and I said, I couldn't think of anything exciting to ask him because he wasn't highly touted. And I said, do you think you wrestled in high school, will help you with leverage? And he said, absolutely. And he was right. And it not only helped him at Tennessee, it helped him with the Packers for 12 years.
7th round draft pick by the Packers, became a starting Pro Bowl center, and won Aaron Rodgers a Super Bowl. I mean, he was right. He was a 3-star, and people thought he might even need to play fullback or defensive line. A lot of people did not think he was cut out to play offensive line in the SEC.
He packed every bit of muscle on a frame. If I made the list of most muscle packed on a frame of all time, that was him. I've never seen a man pack more muscle on one frame than him. All right. That's why he makes the big bucks. Caleb Calhoun comes up with Scott Wells with the clock ticking. Have a fantastic morning, afternoon, day, whenever you're listening. We're live each and every weekday. Off the Hook Sports at 10 a.m. with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Have a fantastic rest of your day. This has been a presentation